welcome to the podcast series Inclusive Research and Innovation in Science, Technology, Engineering and Mathematics. Inclusive research and innovation takes place whenever science, technology, engineering and mathematics scholars actively integrate the diversity of human beings in their work. In doing so, they contribute to inclusive processes and results. Yet, how do we get there? My name is Claudia Werker, and I'm an associate professor at Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands. I host this podcast series on IRI and STEM. Guests of the series will be various colleagues from different universities of technology. All of them consider IRI and STEM principles or explore of how to do so. Today, I welcome my colleague, Dr. Odette Scharenborg, from Delft University of Technology, who systematically considers the diversity of human beings in her research on speech recognition systems. Welcome, Odette. It is a pleasure having you. Could you perhaps, to start with, give us a bit of an idea what you are working about and what your professional background is?
So I have a background in human and automatic speech processing, so basically speech to text systems. And for the last 10 years or longer, I've been working on automatic speech recognition, as you already introduced, but lately also more on things like voice conversion, where we're trying to convert one voice or speech from one speaker into the speech of another speaker. And all our research is primarily focused on what we call inclusive speech technology, where we're trying to develop speech technology for every speaker. So not only what we call normal speakers or standard speakers, but for all types of speakers, what I refer to as diverse speakers. And normal speakers are considered to be 18 plus, but below the age of 60, without a strong accent, without a speech impediment, and native speakers of a language. So that it excludes all the adults, it excludes adolescents, children, people with a speech impediment, etc. So we've tried to focus on these type of diverse speaker groups.
So basically you are not considering the normal kind of speakers, but you are actually looking for everything that is different.
Exactly. To a certain degree, we still look at the normal speakers, but we use them as our baseline in a way. So what we do is we try to compare. So what kind of results do we get for normal speakers, and how does the system work for diverse speakers? And what we find is a huge performance difference between normal speakers and diverse speakers. So we try to develop and improve methods for diverse speakers so that their performance becomes closer to that of normal speakers without losing performance on the normal speakers. So it's not the case that we focus on getting the same performance on all speaker groups, meaning that the performance for the standard speakers can go down, but rather we want to keep performance for normal speakers and improve that of the diverse speaker groups. So we do look at the normal speakers, but only as our baseline rather than focusing on developing tools for them.
Okay, very interesting. What has been your major driving force actually to do this kind of research and innovation?
So for a very long time, I was working in automatic speech recognition, so speech to text. I thought that was really interesting. And then since 2012, I started to become more interested in diversity and inclusion. So I actually first started to work on the topic of diversity and inclusion, primarily focusing on gender, specifically younger females. And that very quickly became a broader topic, looking into minorities and helping them in academia. And then at some point I woke up and I realized, why am I not actually combining my research into speech technology with my focus and interest in minority groups? And then I realized that there was very, very little research actually done on this. And so this has been 3 years ago, I think. And that's when I started to focus on what I've called inclusive speech technology.
Right. What would be the coolest result to achieve in your research and innovation?
The coolest result to achieve? Well, I would say if we get performance for all diverse speakers to the same level as that of standard speakers, that would be the coolest, especially if we can do that with less amount of data than we currently need to actually build these systems. That is sort of my dream. So developing speech technology for everyone, but using less data than we currently do.
Right. So you involve a lot of different stakeholders that would usually not be considered. Is that correct?
Actually, we don't really use stakeholders, although we are starting to do that. So we recently were approached by someone from the University of Amsterdam. So this is a young man who is in a wheelchair and has a dysarthria, which is a speaking deficit due to an accident that he had many years ago. And he asked us whether we could help him develop tools that allow him to be understood better by others. This is actually the first time that we were approached in such a way to collaborate with him. We're recording his speech, for instance, and the plan is to continue this and make this a larger effort. So also that would actually be including other stakeholders as well, the people who represent different speaker groups. We have not done that so far. We have primarily used data that has already been around for some time. But we also realized, because first, there is various data for diverse speaker groups, and second, we only have some data for some diverse speaker groups, definitely not for everyone. We need to change gears and indeed start to include different stakeholders in this research. And recently, I started a collaboration with a social professor in Finland, where he has access to an enormous group of LGBTQ people. And we are looking into ways of designing and also recording a database of LGBTQ speech. And I've been wanting to do that for quite some time now, but didn't know exactly how to do it. He has access to stakeholders. So I'm quite excited about this, and I'm kind of hoping that this will get off the ground. But our type of research is difficult to get stakeholders to collaborate with us, because we really are focusing on the research, and we're training systems and we're testing systems on data sets. So the way we could actually use them is by having them give us their voices in a way, so have them record their speech. But there is a lot of ethical stuff that needs to be solved before we can actually do that. So we've been refraining from that, but now we're at the point where we feel like, okay, we really need those databases. We need the stakeholders to help us out. So now we are at the point where we're starting to work more with all kinds of different collaborators and stakeholders. But it's only in the beginning phase now.
And of course, it's very cool if someone is connecting with you because he feels that you can help him. But it would be even cooler if you would, in a systematic way, approach people and ask them for their input.
Exactly.
And for the ethical issues, of course, we always have this kind of concerns whenever we talk to people, use their data and so on. That might be also an idea for another podcast to figure out how to do that in a good way with our data steward. But we'll have to see whether that can happen. So, of course, we know each other already quite a while. So I know that you are a sort of interdisciplinary person in yourself. But could you reflect a bit on how much interdisciplinarity you need to do the kind of research you are doing?
Oh, I think a lot. So, I have an interdisciplinary background between psycholinguistics and computer science in a way, automatic speech recognition. But even though I already encompass quite a lot of different areas within the research that we're doing, I cannot do everything by myself, especially the ethical part and the philosophical part. That's where I need collaborators, which I have, like Oya Kudina and Wiebke Utiri, both from Delft University of Technology, actually from your faculty. And their insights into how voice assistants, for instance, are being used, how bias is actually, what it actually is, and what fairness actually is from a philosophical and ethical point of view, that is really needed to improve our systems and actually our understanding of how bias and fairness actually manifests itself in the speech technology systems that we work with. And so my last main conference, there was a discussion on bias in automatic speech recognition and speech technology in general. And I noticed there the people who were leading the panel were still very much at the conceptual level, like this is bias, this is fairness, but they could not actually translate this to the actual systems, which is what we have done. But I could not have done that by myself, because these translation steps that you have to do, they're massive. And from the other side, I heard from my collaborators that for them it's really hard to make that connection as well. So they understand the conceptual parts, but don't really know what an automatic speech recognition system actually is. So they also don't know how to integrate this. So you really need each other to understand the concepts and translate these concepts into something that you can actually work with in speech technology. So that's already one way where interdisciplinarity is really important. The other part in my research where we need interdisciplinarity is in phonetics. Phonetics is a science that concerns itself with speech, how speech sounds are being produced, for instance, and how they are being perceived, but primarily how they're being produced. And if you look at diverse speech, it just differs so much from standard speech, but how it differs, that is something that is not clear, actually. And this is where phonetics comes in. They can help explain, okay, these are the processes that are happening. This is where diverse speech differs from standard speech. And we can use that knowledge, hopefully, to improve our systems that are primarily focused on standard speech.
I mean, I can see why you need interdisciplinary research or collaboration. How about transdisciplinary collaboration? So across, you were already mentioning you might work with other academics, but would you also want or could work with others, for example, from governmental agencies, from other research organizations, from industry? And how would it look like?
Actually, we do. So we have a large project that we're trying to set up regarding child speech. So child speech is very difficult in many respects. One of the things, of course, is that child speech itself differs across the ages. So if you try to remember what a child sounds like when it's 2 years old or when it's 13 years old, there's a massive difference. So there's a developmental differences over time, but also between the children, there's a lot of deviation of how they speak. And then you might have children who have developmental disorders. So there's a lot of diversity in child speech. At the same time, child speech technology doesn't work at all. But there's a lot of people who are interested in this kind of technology. So we are working with AWIS, for instance, which is an organization that focuses on children who have developmental disorders. And in order for them to help these children, they need to transcribe their speech. But they would do that by hand now. So they want us to help them to create the speech technology that helps them to do this partially, at least automatically. We need them because they have the knowledge on how child speech differs from adult speech and how it develops over time. And they need us for the technology part. So we are working together to see how we can give each other the expertise, the tools, the knowledge that we need. So yes, there's definitely the type of research going on as well, where we can stay within academia, but to actually make progress, we need to collaborate with outside organizations as well.
So that sounds really fascinating. If you now consider our conversation about inclusive speech recognition, is there anything that would have to change in your direct environment or in a broader context so that your work would be easier?
Well, my work would be a lot easier if there were more databases with diverse speech, and there are not. And the reason is that it's really hard to find any funding to collect these databases. So any research on speech technology would benefit massively from new databases. So if that could change, and that's hard, I know that, because it's a funding thing. But we're working on that. We're trying to find funding for these databases. But that is so crucial, it's so fundamental to have data to work with. At the same time, it's so hard to get. So if that could be changed one way or another, then I would be in heaven.
Is there anything else you would like to share with us that you did not have a chance to do so during this interview?
Oh, I did not think about that. Well, I think in general, my research focuses on inclusive speech technology, but I think inclusive research is really important because almost all research is focused on the standard person, whatever standard is. Often it's even a male. We also focus on females, but also male persons. And I think taking into account the diversity that we have between people actually makes tools more robust in the end, makes research more robust in the end, and makes our society more inclusive because we focus so much on the standard, where by having the innovation basically results in exclusion of other people, making the difference between included and excluded people actually bigger. And I think that is something that a lot of people are not really aware of, that the effect of technology could be that you're excluding more people than you actually wanted, even though you are thinking you're innovating. And I think that is something that is really important for more people to realize, that inclusive research is difficult, yes, but it's fundamental.
Well, I could not have put it better myself. Thank you once again for contributing to our podcast series on inclusive research and innovation in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.